CSA. We're going to cover the first half of Unit 2, which is methods, classes, and objects. So first, let's go over objects. Every program you write involves at least one thing that's being created or manipulated by the program. This thing, together with the operations that manipulate it, is called an object. And any given program can have several types of objects. For example, a program that maintains a database of all books in a library has at least two objects. The first one would be a book object, and the second one would be a list of books object. Both of these would have respective operations in them to help define the object. An object is characterized by its state and behavior. It's also behavior going out of print. Notice that an object is an idea, separate from concrete details of a programming language. It corresponds to some real-world object that is being represented by the program. All objects-oriented programming language have a way to represent an object as a variable in a program. In Java, a variable that represents an object is called an object reference. Now let's go over classes. A class is a software blueprint for implementing objects of a given type. An object is a single instance of the class. In a program, there will be several different instances of a given class type. The current state of a given object is maintained in its data fields or instance variables provided by the class. The methods of the class provide both the behaviors exhibited by the object and the operations that manipulate it. Combining an object's data and methods into a single unit is called encapsulation. Here's a basic framework for a class. You would start with the header, so it'll be public class, and then name, which is whatever name. Then we put the instance variables, and then we put constructors, which we'll be discussing later in this lesson. Getters and setters, which we'll also be discussing, and other methods. That's the basic layout of a class. Now let's talk about class declaration signals. There are three main ones: public, private, and static. Public methods are accessible to all client programs. Clients, however, are not privy to the class implementation and may not access the private instance variables and private methods of the class. Restriction of access is known as information hiding. In Java, it is implemented by the word private. Private method and variables in a class can be accessed only by methods of that class. Even though Java allows public instance variables in the AP Java subset, all instance variables are private. A static variable contains a value that is shared by all instances of the class. Static means that the memory allocation happens once. Typical uses of a static variable are to keep track for objects of the class, accumulate a total, provide a new identity number for each new object of the class. Static final variables in the class cannot be changed. They're often declared public, and since the variable is public, it can be used in any client method. The keyword static indicates it's a single value of the variable that applies to the whole class rather than a new instance for each object. A class. And now let's go over methods. All method headers, with exception of constructors and static methods, look like this. You put the access specifier, public, private, the return type, and the method name, and then the parameter list. The access specifier tells which other methods can call this method. And a return type of void signals tells what the method returns, what type of value it returns, and the items in a parameter list are separated by commas. Now let's go over some types of methods. The first one we'll be going over is constructors. A constructor creates an object of the class. You can always recognize a constructor by its name. It has the same name as the class. Also, a constructor has no return types. Having several constructors provides different ways of initializing class objects. Here's an example of a constructor. So it would be public dog. A dog would be the main object in this instance as well. And we would do breed equals just quotes with nothing inside to say there's no. This is called a default constructor. And it has no arguments, and it provides reasonable initial values for an object. Constructors with parameters sets the instance variable of a bank account to those values of those parameters. In a client program, a declaration that uses this constructor needs matching parameters. For example, it would be public dog, and we would do string new breed, and inside the constructor would say breed equals new breed. And if we ever need to call it, we would say dog D would equal new dog and specify the breed you want. Now let's go over getters. Getters is also called accessors or accessor methods, since it accesses a class without altering the object. It also returns some information about the object. For example, we would say to get the age of a dog, we would use a getter that says public int get age, and then the method would somehow return the age. The dot operator is used to say it belongs to the class in this instance. Now let's go over setters. Setters are considered mutator methods since it changes the states of an object by modifying at least one of its instance variables. For example, since we used breed as an instance variable in the previous one, we would use a public void set breed and then put string new breed inside the link, inside the parameter list, and then we would say dog equals new breed, breed equals new breed, and that's that. A mutator method in a client program is invoked in the same way an accessor is, using an object variable with the dot operator. Okay, so that's it for this lesson. We will be going over the other half of Unit 2 soon, and make sure to like and subscribe. Thanks for listening.